I call the member for Baulkham Hills in reply.
Mr Deputy Speaker, I for the life of me cannot understand how the Labor Party can spend any moment of their time trying to justify their role in the housing market and any stimulation that they think started. Let's start at the start. 1985, Bob Carr came up to the Hills District. 1985, when I was still at high school, Bob Carr came up to my electorate and he said, at least I went to high school, and he said, Mr Deputy Speaker, that we were going to be bringing North West Rail to the Hills District. 1985. Why did he say that? Because North Western Sydney was where the housing growth was going to be. 25 years later, Mr Acting Speaker, 30 years later no less, we have finally got action on the North West Rail. Mr Acting Speaker, the member for Mount Druitt says to me that he stands up here and he says under Labor the development on the western side of Old Windsor Road was commenced and stimulated. Mr Acting Speaker, he clearly hasn't been to North Western Sydney that often, because those developments have grown and stimulated over the last 3 years since the coalition government was elected. And it took ages for those houses and those developments to commence because of the repressive policies of the Labor Party. And they might want to stand up here and say, well, the stimulation in the housing sector is caused by low interest rates. Well, we'll take that, because it was under a coalition government in Canberra that interest rates have been kept low. Members on that side cannot get away from the fact that it was a Labor government in Canberra that gave us 17% interest rates, which destroyed families across Sydney, which destroyed families across Western Sydney working class families that they claim to represent. Mr Acting Speaker, I know all about those 17% interest rates. I'm from Western Sydney, Mr Acting Speaker, and I've forgotten how many families were thrown out because of the repressive economic vandalism that the Labor Party used to dish up to the people that they allegedly represented. Mr Acting Speaker, Mr Deputy Speaker, home ownership is the most aspirational activity that any person in Australia would seek to address. Mr Deputy Speaker, most people out there in the real world, not the type of dodgy people that Labor members opposite might want to pretend that they're representing, real people around New South Wales, I want one thing out of their government, and that is for the government to provide an environment where owning their own home is easy, is accessible, and there's surety in the housing market. Mr Acting Speaker, with that in mind, this motion should be passed. Those opposites should be grateful that we're here cleaning up their mess.
Excellent.